Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome to all participants who are online. My name is Kaisa Usima, and I am here with my colleague Kilian Christ. We are based in UN Environment in Nairobi, Kenya, and we are facilitating this webinar on concepts and methodology for collecting water quality data to enable reporting for the ambient water quality indicator 6.3.2. UN Environment is responsible for compiling the reporting data for 3 of the indicators in SDG 6, which is the goal to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And indicator 6.3.2 on ambient water quality is one of these 3 indicators. So through your Ministries of Environment and Water or the National Statistical Office, you may have already learned about the data collection activities and the correspondence that has taken place with respect to the indicators 632 and 661. And today's webinar will focus only on indicator 632, and it is meant to support and guide the officers who are in charge of water quality reporting in the member states. We can move to the next slide now.
This webinar is organized by UN Environment and its team of the Global Environment Monitoring System for Freshwater, which is also known as GEMS Water. And GEMS Water is a part of UN Environment dedicated to freshwater quality monitoring and data management. And our team is responsible for the data collection for indicators 6.3.2 and providing technical assistance. And here on this slide, you can see the team of experts behind the help desk who will be answering your questions submitted via email to sdg6waterquality.ecosystems@unep.org. And Debbie Chapman, Stuart Warner, and Philip Style will also be giving live presentations today during this webinar. And the target audience of this webinar are water quality experts sitting in ministries, water authorities, and other institutions that are likely to inform a country's reporting on the SDG 6 indicator on water quality. And many of these attendees today are also GEMS Water National Focal Points. And on the next slide, we continue with some general house rules. This webinar will be recorded and made available through the UN Water website dedicated to SDG 6 monitoring, that is sdg6monitoring.org. And the question and answer panel will allow you to send questions to the host, presenter, and all other panelists. And frequently asked questions will be made available through the same website. We'll collect them and answer them. And in the event we have lots of questions and do not have the time to answer them all during this webinar, your question will be addressed later and the answer will be available on the website. And please also let us know if you experience any technical difficulties, and we can see if there's anything we can do from our end.
You can move to the next slide, please. So this webinar introduces the concepts and methodology for collecting water quality data to enable reporting of the ambient water quality indicator 632. It identifies the requirements for implementing a water quality monitoring network that will generate the necessary data for calculating the indicator. During this webinar, we will give examples of indicator calculation, and we will also go through the templates for baseline data that has been sent to all of you with the data request email. And it actually may be a good idea if you have a look at the Excel template during this webinar. And the structure of today's webinar is such that we will start with brief remarks from UN Environment. We will then move to part 1 of the webinar, and we will have a live presentation giving us an overview of indicator 632. In part 2, we will dive into the detailed step-by-step methodology, and in part 3, we will have a presentation on details of the reporting mechanism. After each of the technical presentations, you will have an opportunity to ask questions specific to that presentation. And at the very end of the entire webinar, we will briefly outline the next steps, and you will again have an opportunity to ask any remaining general questions you may have. We estimate that today's webinar will take about 1.5 hours in total. And we will now start with remarks from Joachim Harlin, who is the head of Freshwater Ecosystems Unit here at UN Environment, Nairobi. And we will then directly move into remarks from Hartwig Kremer, who is the head of the GEMS Water Program at the UN Environment. So thank you. We can move.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Joachim Harlin. I head up the Freshwater Unit at UN Environment. And I welcome you on behalf of all my colleagues working on freshwater to this webinar series, which is about SDG 6 monitoring. You may have already seen the joint webinars that were hosted by UN Water on the SDG goal at large and how that relates to Agenda 2030. Those webinars are available on the UN Water website. We at UN Environment are responsible for 3 of the indicators under SDG 6. These are indicators under the targets 6.3 on ambient water quality. We are also responsible for indicator under 6.5 on integrated water resources management, and also 6.6, which is about freshwater ecosystems. And for each of those, we are going to have a dedicated webinar. We will go through the different methodologies and try to have questions and answers in different ways, try to support you. We have also put in place dedicated websites and a help desk. So after that you've taken part of these webinars, we welcome you to take contact with our help desk, and we'll try to support you in every way possible. Welcome once again.
Hello, my name is Hartwig Kremer. I'm working for UN Environment on water quality monitoring and assessments. The world is facing a water quality challenge. Pollution of surface and groundwaters increasingly poses risks to public health, food security, biodiversity, and ecosystem services. Water quality in our environment, the ambient water quality, also determines the quantity of water available for different human uses. Water quality is therefore central to many goals and targets in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Providing a baseline of ambient water quality in countries and continued monitoring are critical. The UN Environment Global Environment Monitoring System for Water, GEMS Water, is mandated by member states to support water quality monitoring. The GEMS Water team in the Data Center in Germany, the Capacity Development Center in Ireland, the Regional Center in Brazil, and in UN Environment headquarters works with countries to create a unique water quality database and to provide information for assessments and water management. In this webinar, we specifically focus on the Sustainable Development Goal 6.3.2, the percentage of water bodies with good ambient water quality, its data requirements, monitoring and reporting. The GEMS Water team stands ready to work with you and is looking forward to working with you on this challenge.
Thank you, Joachim and Hartwig, for these remarks. We will now move directly to the first presentation. Debbie Chapman is the head of the GEMS Water Capacity Development Center located in University College Cork in Ireland, and she will give us an overview of indicator 6.3.2. Over to you, Debbie.
Okay, thank you very much, Killian, and welcome everybody. In this presentation, I'll give you a brief overview of indicator 632, including its development, the rationale behind the indicator, and a short explanation of the national requirements to collect the data and report the indicator. A more detailed presentation of the actual methodology for the indicator and the reporting system will be presented by my colleagues. Target 6.3 of Goal 6 aims by 2030 to improve water quality by reducing pollution, eliminating dumping and minimizing release of hazardous chemicals and materials, halving the proportion of untreated wastewater, and substantially increasing recycling and safe reuse globally. Target 6.3 has 2 indicators. Indicator 6.3.1 measures the proportion of wastewater safely treated. This indicator, which is under the custodianship of the World Health Organization and UN Habitat, will give a measure of the potential for water quality pollution from untreated wastewater, much of which ends up in rivers and lakes. Such pollution can lead to a deterioration in water quality, with possible consequences for the users of the water and for the aquatic ecosystem. But in order to determine the extent and long-term changes in water quality, Indicator 632 measures the proportion of water bodies with good ambient water quality at country level. Although the results of Indicator 632 are being collated initially for a baseline data report in 2018, establishing a national water quality monitoring network and collecting and analysing water quality data have benefits for sustainable management of water resources at national level. Effective water management needs reliable water quality information, without which there may be inadequate controls on wastewater discharges, insufficient water treatment for drinking water, and inadequate conservation or remediation of water bodies and wetlands. Hence, striving to achieve Target 6.3 through reporting Indicator 632 can help countries to manage their water resources more sustainably in the future. In order for countries to report Indicator 632, a globally applicable and comparable approach to determining good ambient water quality was needed. The UN Environment GEMS Water Programme developed the basis for a water quality index in 2007, which was revised in 2014-15, specifically for Indicator 632. The proposed index was tested in 5 countries during 2016 in order to determine its suitability and ease of use. Only 2 of those countries attempted to implement the methodology. These were Uganda and Senegal. And another had the necessary data, but needed additional time to compile the index. Feedback was also obtained from the 5 countries and numerous other individuals and organisations who had reviewed the method. As a result of the diverse comments and the practical attempts to implement the methodology, the approach was simplified at the end of 2016, and the revised approach is presented in this webinar for implementation towards the collection of baseline data during 2017. It is anticipated that the methodology for the index will continue to be refined as more countries begin the process of gathering baseline data and reporting on Indicator 632. The rationale for the indicator methodology is that good water quality does not damage ecosystem function or present a risk to human health when the water is used for drinking and cooking or for recreational activities. Water quality that is not impacted by human activities supports a balanced ecosystem with good species diversity and requires little treatment before use. Many activities can lead to unsatisfactory water quality, such as discharge of untreated wastewaters from domestic, urban and industrial situations, use of fertilizer and pesticides in agriculture, and extraction of oil and mineral resources. Being able to classify water quality as good or unsatisfactory requires a water quality monitoring program that generates credible and compatible data. Determining water quality at national scale, therefore, requires a network of monitoring stations that covers all designated water bodies and at which water quality is measured. Some measurements can be made in situ at these stations, and others require regular sampling of the water for analysis in the laboratory. Monitoring data may be collected from a national network of stations or from different agencies collecting water quality for different purposes. Finally, the data need to be checked for comparability and collated centrally so that they can be used for generating the water quality index values for designated water bodies. Indicator 632 is reported as the proportion, as a percentage, of water bodies with good ambient water quality. This means that countries need to define the boundaries of each of their water bodies, including river, lake, reservoir and groundwater bodies. Water quality can be determined and classified from its physical, chemical, and biological characteristics. Traditional water quality monitoring undertaken in most countries globally uses physical and chemical measurements. So, for the purposes of Indicator 632, the index is calculated from easily measured physical and chemical water quality parameters. For surface waters, these parameters are dissolved oxygen, electrical conductivity, nitrogen, phosphorus, and pH. And for groundwaters, they are electrical conductivity, nitrate, and pH. A water body can be classified as being of good water quality when at least 80% of measured values meet target values that have been defined nationally to represent minimal disturbance to the water body. Target values represent thresholds that indicate whether the water quality is good or subject to impairment from human or natural influences. Ideally, target values should be chosen to protect ambient water quality, but other use-related targets can be used, especially if they relate to untreated water. Countries select or set their own target values, and it may be necessary to have different target values for different types of water body, such as rivers or lakes. When setting target values, fluctuations in measurements due to natural seasonal variation should be considered to ensure realistic target values are chosen. As I said before, Indicator 632 is reported as a percentage of all water bodies that have been classified as good. An Excel spreadsheet is being provided to facilitate national reporting. Because the value obtained for Indicator 632 feeds into Indicator 661, which measures the change in extent of water-related ecosystems over time, the spreadsheet enables combined data reporting for Indicators 632 and 661. During the testing and review of the methodology for Indicator 632, countries commented that there were other parameters that would be useful in determining good water quality in their national context. In order to facilitate national preferences, the methodology recommends progressive monitoring, where countries can gradually incorporate additional parameters and include more monitoring stations. Over time, other approaches to determining water quality, such as biological methods and remote sensing, may also be added. The progressive development of the methodology will be refined and tested over the coming year. By now, many of you will have received an invitation to participate in the baseline data collection process for the indicator, and may also have taken part in the inception webinars. The methodology for the indicator, together with the data submission forms, were sent out in April, and the process of gathering and submission of baseline data is about to begin. The following presentations will take you through the detail of how to implement the methodology and to collect the data. The remaining steps of the process will also be explained later in this webinar. I will now hand you back to the facilitator. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Debbie, for that thorough overview. I would now like to invite all participants to type any questions you may have in the Q&A section. It's in the upper right-hand corner of the WebEx panel. And while you are doing so, I'll just highlight some of the key messages from Debbie's presentation. It highlighted that this baseline collection process either requires a national water quality monitoring network for ambient water quality, including those 5 core parameters, or that there is a special mechanism at the country level for collecting water quality data from different organizations or agencies within that specific country that already monitors ambient water quality regularly and at in this case, it is especially important for the persons responsible for preparing the data submission form to liaise with all relevant stakeholders in the country. From Debbie's presentation, we also learned that national water quality target values for the 5 core parameters are needed in order to be able to calculate the indicators. And I understand we will learn more about this in the following presentation. The presentation also stressed the importance of a data storage and reporting system for water quality at national level. I'm checking if we have any questions. We have no questions at this stage, so I think we can directly move to the next presentation. If you have questions later, please do not hesitate to type them in the Q&A section. So we'll now move to the next presentation, which has been prepared by Stuart Warner, who is also from the GEMS Water Capacity Development Center. And Stuart will guide us through the step-by-step methodology for indicator 632. And again, any questions you may have will be addressed after the presentation. So over to you, Stuart.
Thanks, Kaiser. Hello to everyone. I'll give you an overview of the step-by-step method to calculate indicator 632. As mentioned during the previous presentation, different countries may start different steps depending on their existing monitoring networks and reporting systems. To help explain each step, I'll be using an example which follows each step description. The example will be highlighted in a green box like this. This fictitious example follows the implementation of the indicator by country X, right through from step 1 to 9. The first step is to assess the existing water quality monitoring activity and capacity at the national level. This capacity assessment may extend beyond the ministry or authority that holds overall responsibility for water quality monitoring. For example, this may include other ministries within government, universities or research institutes, the private sector, or river basin organisations. Each organisation may be actively collecting water quality data or may hold historical data records which could be used for indicator 632 reporting. In our example for country X, the assessment revealed there aren't any other organisations which are collecting or holding data, but there is a river water quality monitoring programme in operation. The rivers programme currently monitors only 1 of 10 river basins in the country. There are 5 monitoring stations within the basin being monitored. Data are available for the reporting period of 1 year for the core parameters. There is 1 central laboratory which undertakes all analyses, and there are no lake or groundwater programs currently running. Additionally, there are plans to expand the river monitoring network to 2 more of the 10 river basins, and preliminary lake and groundwater surveys are planned with a view to start monitoring these water body types in the future. Once the capacity assessment is complete, the next step, step 2, involves the identification and delineation of reporting basin districts and water bodies. This step is critical as it defines the size and number of water bodies in the country, and also how these water bodies are aggregated into the reporting basin districts. More detail on the definition of the reporting units and reporting mechanisms will be covered in the next presentation. The sequence of stages necessary in step 2 are identify and delineate reporting basin districts at the national scale, categorize river, open, which are both lakes and reservoirs, and groundwater body types within each basin, and then delineate all water body types within the reporting basin districts. To help describe this concept, this map shows the river network for the southwest of Ireland. In this map, the river network has been divided into reporting basin districts. Reporting basin districts are made up of one or more river basins. The next stage is to subdivide each reporting basin district into water bodies. This map shows the catchment areas of each river water body in the basin. It must be noted that the size and number of the water bodies is decided by the country. The water bodies themselves need to be delineated following the delineation of the reporting basin units. Because each water body must be located inside a reporting basin unit. Surface waters should be divided into water bodies according to their type, i.e. river or open. If, for example, a river is interrupted by a lake in its course, the boundaries between the lake and the upstream and downstream river stretches would act as boundaries between the three individual water bodies. For lake water bodies, only the lake surface is used, rather than the catchment area as in the case of rivers. Groundwater bodies are more difficult to delineate and require a thorough understanding of the hydrogeological environment. In this example, the groundwaters are divided by the same reporting basin units used for surface waters and then by aquifer unit. If an aquifer unit crosses a reporting basin district boundary, the groundwater body is divided along the basin boundary, as shown here, in the middle of this example. It's critical to understand that reporting basin units, districts, although derived from one or more river basins, are used for both open and groundwater bodies. In our example, for country X, where only a rivers monitoring program is operational in a single river basin, the whole river basin could be defined as a water body. But the confluence of the two main tributaries is considered as significant enough to subdivide the river system into three distinct water bodies at the point of confluence. When the reporting basin districts and water bodies have been defined and delineated, the monitoring stations can be selected and defined. This is an important step because samples need to be collected from the same locations over time to allow trends in the data to be reliably interpreted. Monitoring stations for indicator 632 should be distributed throughout the catchment and not restricted to unimpacted locations. In our example, there were 5 monitoring stations used in the existing monitoring program, and these stations were deemed suitable for indicator 632. 2 are unimpacted sites, monitoring stations 3 and 5. 2 at mid-catchment sites, each at the base of 2 major tributaries, 2 and 4. And 1 at the point where the catchment drains into the ocean, station 1. Step 4 is to set targets against which the measured values are compared. This step is key in determining the value of indicator 632 at the national level. If targets are too stringent, they may not be realistically achievable. And conversely, if they are too lenient, the indicator will not reflect true water quality, and the indicator may not serve to protect the water resource. Target values can be either relevant for the whole country, or alternatively, water body or reporting basin district specific. These specific targets can be set using existing historical data. Countries may fall into one of 3 potential categories. National ambient water quality standards exist for all core parameters. Data exists, but national target values do not. insufficient water quality data are available to generate target values. If countries fall into the first category, these ambient water quality standards can be used as target values. Countries in the second category will need to assess whether the existing data are sufficient, and if so, these data can be used to set target values. If not, the country falls into the third category. Countries in this third category have the choice of either adopting existing targets from another jurisdiction, although it must be noted that these adopted targets may not be suitable because target values are specific to local, geological and climatic factors. Or, alternatively, initiating a program designed to collect the necessary data. For countries in the second category, this slide describes an example of how data from unimpacted monitoring locations, which are relatively free from pressures on water quality, such as agriculture, wastewater effluent or mining, can be used to set target values that are relevant for the whole reporting basin district. In other words, the water quality throughout the basin is being compared to unimpacted values. This figure shows the data for total oxidized nitrogen, or TON, for two monitoring locations. Site 1 is a headwater site with a very low population density and low intensity agriculture in the catchment, whereas Site 2 is mid-catchment. There are small towns and a greater proportion of agriculture in the catchment. The 95th percentile for Site 1, or the value below which 90% of the measured values fall for the unimpacted site, is 0.544 milligrams of nitrogen per litre. This value is then used as the target for Site 1 and 2, and any other sites which happen to be in the same basin. When plotted on the chart, it indicates how many of the measured values meet this target. In this case, for Site 2, 16 of the 24 records do not meet the target. For countries in the third category who aim to adopt targets from other jurisdictions, there are published values available as shown in this table. This table is available in the methodology document, which is available on the website. As mentioned above, these values may not be suitable at the national level, but could serve as a starting point and adapted to local conditions. For countries in the third category who need to design and initiate a monitoring program, this graphic lists the different elements of designing a monitoring program. To provide detail on each of these elements is beyond the scope of this webinar, but links to further information on training available from GEMS Water is included at the end of this webinar. If countries have neither existing monitoring programs nor relevant historical data, reporting on indicator 632 within the suggested time frame for this rollout phase will not be possible. Efforts and resources would best be channeled into establishing small-scale but reliable monitoring programs which could serve as a base for future expansion. Referring back to our example for country X, national ambient water quality standards already exist at the national level for river water bodies, as shown in the table. For dissolved oxygen, a lower target value of 6 milligrams per litre exists. This means the measured concentration should not fall below this value. For electrical conductivity, there is an upper 500 microsiemens per centimetre target value. This means the measured value should not exceed this value. For pH, the target is a range between 6 and 8. For orthophosphate, there is an upper target of 0.035 milligrams of phosphorus per litre. And for total oxidized nitrogen, there is an upper target of 1.8 milligrams of nitrogen per litre. Step 5 involves the collection or collation of data that is to be used for the indicator calculation. These data don't necessarily have to be distinct from the data used to set target values. The minimum data requirements for calculating this indicator are measurements obtained by analysing water samples for all the core parameters. Continuing with our example, there are 5 river monitoring locations, stations 1 to 5, in 3 water bodies, rivers 1, 2 and 3, all within a single reporting basin district. Data for the core parameters are available for the monitoring stations as shown in the table. There are 10 sampling occasions during a 1-year period. And just to note, for clarity, in this example, only data from Station 1 of River 1 are shown. Once the data have been collected, the next step is to classify these according to set targets. In this step, the data are used to classify the water quality for each water body as either good or not good. This is done by calculating the percentage compliance. This is defined as the percentage of monitoring values that comply with the target values. It's recommended that only data from a maximum of the last 3 years be used for the calculation of the indicator to ensure that the results are up to date and globally comparable. A threshold value of 80% compliance is used to classify water bodies as good quality. For each core parameter and each monitoring location within a water body, the monitoring values are compared with target values. In the table, the exceedances are shown in red. For dissolved oxygen, there are 3 exceedances. For electrical conductivity, none. And for pH, none. For orthophosphate, all 12. And for total oxidized nitrogen, 3. Next, each measurement is assigned a 1 if the target was met, or a 0 if the target was not met, as shown in the table. These 1s and 0s are then used to calculate the percentage compliance for each parameter at this monitoring station. For example, for dissolved oxygen, 7 of the 10 measurements met the target, and therefore the percentage compliance is 70%. This is then performed for all the parameters. These percentage compliance parameter values for each monitoring station are then used to calculate the percentage compliance per water body. In the case of River 1, where there is only 1 monitoring station, this value is used. If there are 2 or more monitoring stations in the water body, these station values are averaged to calculate the water body percentage compliance. To classify the water quality, these water body values are then compared to the 80% compliance threshold. The values for both rivers 1 and 3, 68 and 79, are below the 80% threshold and then classified as not good. And the value for River 2, 93, is above the threshold and is therefore classified as good. The next stage is to go from classification at the water body level to indicator calculation at the national level by calculating the proportion of classified water bodies classified as good as the percentage of the total number of classified water bodies. The table at the top of this slide is the same as shown previously. In this basic example, only 3 river water bodies are used. In reality, there may be many more river water bodies and also open and groundwater body data available. To progress from classification to indicator calculation, This information is expressed as a percentage of water bodies with good water quality, where NG is the number of classified water bodies holding a good general status, and NT is the number of classified water bodies. In our example, 1 of 3, or 33.3% of water bodies, have good water quality. The reporting procedure is dealt with separately by my colleague in the next presentation of this webinar, so I won't go into any more detail here. The last step, step 9, is a review of the programme's effectiveness. This should include all stages of the programme, from design through to reporting, with the intention of improving efficiency and ensuring the collected data of the highest possible standard. Monitoring programmes are rarely static in nature, and they need to evolve as new information becomes available or new pressures to water quality arise in the water body. That's it for the step-by-step description. Thank you very much for your attention. I'll now hand back to the facilitators.
Thank you, Stuart, for these details on the methodology. While our participants now again have the opportunity to submit their questions, I'll also go through some of the key messages of your presentation. And very important for everyone now wondering what to do with water bodies where there might be no monitoring system in place, we want to highlight again that it is not critical to report on all water bodies in the country, but only on those where reliable monitoring data are available. And don't worry if for some water bodies no data is available, then just leave them out. And one aspect that also might raise many questions are the reporting basin districts and water bodies. Their delineation is decided by the country. Many countries already have subdivided their territory into such districts, but if they are not already available, there are data sets available to help with this delineation. And we've also seen the different ways to set the target values. They can either be national water quality standards or also be derived from existing water quality data from unimpacted sites upstream, where there's little human influence on the water quality. If, on the other hand, neither national standards nor the data exist to set targets, then reporting on 632 won't be possible during this reporting period. But then efforts should be directed at establishing a small-scale and reliable monitoring program. And we're moving on to the question and answer session now. We have one question here. Are we still in a pilot test phase, or is this already the first real data delivery in July 2017? Anyone wants to answer this?
I can answer that, Killian.
Thanks.
Okay, it's Debbie speaking here. The proof of concept phase has finished, and we are hoping to get the first data collection round this year. We're requesting data for July. We realize that's very short notice, but for some countries it may be possible. So we are now really into the first round of reporting, as Stuart mentioned, and I guess Philip can tell you a little bit more about the data collection in the next presentation.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Right now, I don't see any further questions, so we'll move on to the next presentations. There will be two more question rounds in case questions come up in the meantime, but the next and final presenter is Philip Steile from the GEMS Water Data Center based in Koblenz, Germany. And Philip will give a presentation on the details of the reporting mechanisms for indicator 632. And yeah, again, you will have an opportunity to ask questions specific to this presentation after his presentation. Over to you, Philip.
Thank you very much, Kian, for that nice introduction, and warm welcome and good afternoon also from my side. Before I go into my presentation, I would like to add to the previous questions on the data reporting round this year. And as Deborah has mentioned, this is a first data drive to derive baseline data globally. And at the moment, about 80 countries have signaled that they want to contribute data for indicator 632, which will eventually, once collected and quality controlled, be used to develop a baseline report based on the reporting data later in autumn that will also be shared. But now let me get back to my presentation. Following those previous two presentations on the general overview and the detailed step-by-step presentation, I will now proceed with the details of the data structure and reporting mechanism for indicator 632. As my colleague has mentioned in the overview presentation earlier, indicator 632 feeds as a sub-indicator into indicator 661 to measure the temporal change in extent of water-related ecosystems with respect to water quality. Therefore, the data structure and reporting mechanism for both indicators 632 and 661 have been combined, and you have been provided with a reporting template as an Excel worksheet that allows you to report on both indicators simultaneously. During this presentation, I will only talk about the components relevant for indicator 632, as the details for indicator 661 will be presented in a separate webinar. The calculation and subsequent reporting of indicator 632 requires the classification of water quality in water bodies. While the water bodies are the main spatial unit of assessing the quality of water in a country, the main spatial unit for indicator calculation and reporting are the reporting basin districts, as my colleague has detailed in the previous presentation. Consequently, this requires an aggregation of the classification results from single water bodies to reporting basin districts and finally to the national level. In the following, I will explain how this is done and what information you will need to enter into the reporting template to report on the indicator. The reporting template that has been provided to you consists of 11 tables, of which 9 are relevant for reporting on indicator 632, as shown on this slide. The first 3 tables include an overview table with general information about the structure of the template and guidance on data entry. Secondly, a table on definitions of the terms that are used throughout the reporting template. And thirdly, a table with descriptions of all reporting data fields, including their format. Following these 3 tables, there are 5 sheets that require data entry regarding the water quality classification results and related metadata, shown highlighted in green on this slide. The first reporting table, called submission information, asks for general information about the country, organization, and individual submitting the reporting data. The table identification of districts asks for metadata on the reporting basin districts. As these reporting basin districts are used both for indicator 632 and 661, this table serves as reference for all water quality and ecosystem extent reporting data on the following tables. The fourth reporting table, water quality, the third reporting table, water quality, is the core reporting table for indicator 632, which asks you to enter the results of the water quality assessments aggregated at the reporting basin level district level. The table water quality targets ask for the range of the target values that have been applied for each water body type and parameter in each report basin district to enable an assessment of the range of target values applied in different countries. The final reporting table, national water quality, ultimately aggregates the results from the reporting basin district level and sheet water quality to the national level automatically. The last table of relevance for reporting on indicator 632 is called code lists and contains reference code lists for countries, transboundary river basins, water body types, parameters, and units of measurement to be used throughout the reporting template. During the next slides, I will give more detailed information on the relevant reporting tables, colored in green here on this slide. Before I would like to explain some of the quality check mechanisms that have been embedded in the reporting template to support you in entering the reporting data. The tables relevant for reporting contain data validations to ensure correct data entry. This includes validation of the correct data formats for the different data entities. For example, the length of an entered string or referential integrity checks of related items, as well as drop-down selections from code lists, such as shown here on the upper right side for the selection of a transboundary river basin name in the context of the reporting basin district metadata. If data are entered manually in the reporting template and contain an error, you will see an error message with an information about the required format or other error applicable as shown here in the center of that slide. If data are copied into the tables, and then erroneous data will be flagged with red colored text. In the following, I will explain the reporting using the example of country X that has been introduced in the previous step-by-step presentation. For this presentation, this example is slightly extended. In this extended example, country X is bordering country Y, and country X has two reporting basins. One is the reporting basin district A that we already have seen in the previous example, and an additional second one reporting basin district B. Reporting basin district A is the national river basin district that has been used in the previous presentations. It contains three water bodies colored yellow, green, and red that form the subbasins of that reporting basin district. Reporting basin district B is the transboundary river basin that is introduced to explain the calculation and reporting of the indicator for different water body types and in a transboundary setting. This one is shared with country Y, as can be seen on this map. Reporting basin district B contains, similar to reporting basin district A, three river water bodies, also colored yellow, green, and red. The green river water body is shared with country Y, and only the national part of that sub-basin is taken into account during indicator calculation. In addition to the three river water bodies, reporting basin district B also contains two open water bodies in the yellow and red colored subbasins. To cover all water body types, we also include two groundwater bodies, one colored in light gray in the southwestern part of the reporting basin district, and the other one colored in dark gray in the northeastern part. The latter is also a transboundary water body, and as my colleague has presented in the step-by-step presentation, these groundwater bodies are divided along the basin district and national boundaries. In the following slides, I will explain step by step the data entry into the reporting template following this example. In the second step, metadata regarding the reporting. Sorry, wrong one. In the first step, it contains entering information on the country, organization, and individual submitting the reporting data on the table submission information. In our example here, Ms. Jane example from the Ministry of Water in country X is submitting the reporting data. This data serves as reference when assessing the information and in case there are any questions regarding data being reported. In the second step, metadata regarding the reporting basin districts needs to be entered on table identification of districts. Each district needs to be identified by a unique district code that serves as central identifier for referencing reporting basin districts on tables water quality and water quality targets, as well as the indicator 661 specific tables. This code consists of the member states' 2-alpha-character ISO country code, followed by a national unique code. Following our example of country X with the fictitious ISO country code XX, we have two reporting basin districts with the district code XX, followed by RBD, that stands for River Basin District, followed by two letters, one is A and one B for the two districts. The second data field on table identification of districts asks for a readily understandable name of the reporting basin district in English that is meaningful outside of the country. In our example, we call them simply reporting basin district A and reporting basin district B. The third data field, district area, contains the area of the respective reporting basin district in square kilometers, excluding coastal borders. And in our example, reporting basin district A is 25,000 square kilometers and reporting basin district B, 30,000. The fourth data field indicates whether the reporting basin district is part of a transboundary river basin. In our example, the reporting basin district A is not transboundary, so we select no, whereas reporting basin district B is transboundary and we select yes. If the reporting basin district is part of a transboundary river basin and you select yes in the previous data field, a drop-down field lets you select the name of the transboundary river basin name in English, of which this basin district is a part. This drop-down depends on a code list that might not cover all existing transboundary river basins. If you don't find the proper transboundary river basin name, please copy and paste the correct one in here. In the third step, the most important one in entering information in the reporting template, you will be asked to enter the results of the water quality assessments at the level of the previously defined reporting basin districts on table water quality. This table contains 18 columns in total, of which 5 are automatically filled based on data that you enter. The remaining 13 columns request data on the temporal coverage of the assessment, the numbers of water bodies that have been assessed, and those ones that have been classified as having good quality, as well as metadata on the underlying monitoring data regarding the number of monitoring locations and values being used for the assessment. The first 7 columns where you enter data are used to calculate the indicator value for the different water body types and aggregated over all water body types. These are shown on this slide. All district codes entered on the table identification of districts are copied automatically to the field district code. In our example, the previously defined codes XX, RBDA, and B are copied. The second field is called assessment period and contains the start year and end year of the data used to assess the quality of water bodies in the reporting basin district. In our example, the assessment in reporting basin district A included data from 2015 and 16, and in reporting basin district B, data from 2014 to 16. The following three fields contain the number of open water bodies, river water bodies, and groundwater bodies, respectively, that have been classified during the assessment. In reporting basin district A, no open water body, 3 river water bodies, and no groundwater bodies have been used during the classification, and in reporting basin district B, 2 open water bodies, 3 river water bodies, and 2 groundwater bodies have been used. The following three fields contain the number of open water bodies, river water bodies, and groundwater bodies that have been classified as having good water quality according to the indicator methodology. In reporting basin district A, 1 out of 3 river water bodies have been classified as having good quality, and in reporting basin district B, 1 open water body, 2 river water bodies, and 1 groundwater body. Based on the numbers of water bodies with good quality and the total number of classified water bodies, the percentage of water bodies with good quality is automatically calculated both for the 3 different water body types and for all water bodies for each reporting basin district. On this slide, an example for reporting basin district B is given where all water bodies or where water bodies of all types have been assessed. The percentage of groundwater bodies with good quality, highlighted in green, is calculated as the ratio of the number of groundwater bodies with good quality, here 1, and the total number of assessed groundwater bodies, here 2, multiplied by 100, which results in a percentage of 50%. The percentage of all water bodies with good quality in district B is then calculated accordingly as the ratio of the total number of water bodies classified as having good quality, here 4, and the total number of classified water bodies multiplied by 100, which results in a district percentage of 57.14. Once the required data has been entered on the table water quality, the results are automatically aggregated from the reporting basin district level to the national level on the table national water quality. In our example for country X, the percentage of river water bodies with good quality is at the national level is calculated as the ratio of the number of all river water bodies with good quality, here 3, and the total number of classified river water bodies, here 6, multiplied by 100, which results in a country percentage of 50%. The percentage of all water bodies with good quality in country X is finally calculated accordingly from the ratio of the total number of all water bodies with good quality, here 5, and the total number of all classified water bodies, here 10, multiplied by 100, which results in an overall percentage of water bodies with good quality of 50% for country X. This is the final indicator value that will be reported to the global SDGs indicator database of the United Nations Statistical Division at the end. In the fourth and final step of reporting, water quality target values that have been applied to classify the quality of the bodies of water in your country needs to be reported on table water quality targets. Specifically, this table asks for information on the range of target values that have been applied for each water body type and parameter in every single reporting basin district. This information is relevant to assess the range of applied target values within a country, but even more for transboundary river basins where the riparian countries might use very different target values depending on their legislative and natural settings. On this table, the first data fields let you select the district code as entered on the table identification of districts. Here, in our example, we select the reporting basin district A. The following three fields contain drop-down selections for the water body type, the parameter code, and the unit code as defined in the respective code lists on table code lists. In our example, we enter target values for a river for parameter electrical conductivity with the parameter code EC and the unit microsiemens per centimeter. The last two fields, called lower value and upper value, contain the minimum and maximum target values, here 300 and 500 microsiemens per centimeter for the selected water body type and parameter. With this, I would like to end my presentation about the data structure and reporting mechanism for indicator 632. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will now hand back to the facilitator.
Okay, thank you very much, Philip, for this detailed presentation. That indeed was a very dense presentation, and some of you might feel a bit overwhelmed by the amount of information. But no one is expected to capture all this in one session, and the presentation will be made available through the website. So we encourage you to go through the presentation again, while also looking at the actual recording template. And when looking at the template, you will notice that it follows a clear structure and does all the calculations for you. In his presentation, Philip explained some of the formula so that it's clear to you sort of what is going on behind the scene, but you don't have to do any of these calculations on your own. The Excel spreadsheet will do those for you. Philip, we have received a few questions while you were giving your presentation. And the first one is it possible to report with less than 5 core parameters for indicator 632? And then that question is followed by another question specifying that we are monitoring nitrates in ambient water. Can we report on nitrates instead of TON, or total oxidized nitrogen?
Thank you very much for that question, Kaisa. I will start with the second one on the nutrients, since we have received a couple of questions on that one, or in general on the usage of nitrogen parameters. Why we recommend the use of ton for surface waters, it is up to the countries to decide which nutrient fraction they actually use. So in that example, it would be perfectly fine to use nitrates instead of total oxidized nitrogen. Given the vast differences among countries with respect to nutrient monitoring, we have decided to leave that up to the countries. On the one hand, this will somehow reduce the comparability, but overall, it should give a comparable picture if countries actually report on the nutrients by another parameter, which brings me to the second part of, or the first questions you posed. In the indicator methodology, we asked for those 5 core parameters for surface water bodies or 3 for groundwater bodies respectively, assuming that most countries should be able to monitor those ones, and including the previously detailed information on the flexibility in terms of nutrient monitoring, we hope that most countries will be able to report on all 5 core parameters for surface waters. So if available and possible, countries should aim at using all 5. Principally, it's also possible to include fewer parameters if they are not available, but this again will reduce the comparability among countries when it comes to the approach taken, so we discourage that one.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question on comparability. How is comparability of data deliveries ensured when target values are set by each state in a different way and water bodies are designated by states without common methodology?
That is a good one. Unfortunately, there are no global standards with respect to common, globally applicable ambient water quality target values in place. And given the fact that water quality is also very site-specific, regional-specific, throughout the indicator development, we decided that it should be left to the countries to decide up on the target values they will apply. Once to adapt it maybe to regional specifics of certain water bodies. So countries can actually not only use national target values, but can also adapt them to specific water body types or even water bodies if they deem necessary. And on the other hand, there are in many countries legal implications as well, because at national levels there might exist already certain water quality standards that then might differ from universally set standards. This entire indicator methodology is work in progress, and while we hope that in the future we will continue and finally achieve a common structure of deriving ambient water quality standards, at the moment this is not in place. So to summarize that, a comparability of the results can only be achieved to a certain level with that approach.
Okay, thank you for your questions. We will have another round, a final round of questions in a few minutes. Then you will be able to raise either some general issue or ask about a specific topic of this webinar. We want to now quickly outline the following steps. As we already said, it is always difficult to capture a large amount of information in a short time. So we want to point out again that recordings of this webinar will be available at sdg6monitoring.org, so that you can go through the webinar again in your own time. In the following weeks, you will now be able to familiarize yourselves with the methodology, get in touch with the necessary people in your ministry or authority, locate the data, and fill the submission form. The deadline for the submission is the end of July this year. Under the email address sdg6waterquality.ecosystems@unep.org, we will provide continuous support to clarify questions if any difficulties or uncertainties arise during this process. And once the data is submitted, it will go through some checks at the GEMS Water Data Center, and you will receive the feedback from us regarding your submission. And towards the end of the year, the data will inform an indicator report on 632 that will be prepared by UN Environment. There will also be a synthesis of this and other indicators that will be presented to the high-level political forum in 2018. We are looking forward to receiving your completed submission forms at the end of July, and would now proceed to the final question and answer round. Okay, are there any further questions? There was one question earlier referring to the size of water bodies. This goes again to the methodology and the reporting basin districts. The size of water bodies may vary from state to state. Would it not be better to reference on length of water bodies or the river network? Does anyone want to answer this, or has this already been captured with Philip's response from just now?
If you have any questions, please press the hand button there near the chat session, and then we will unmute you. Thank you.
Kilian, shall I maybe reply to that? We
Yes.
have discussed that approach intensely, and it would be better to actually scale the assessment of water bodies by the size. But we have decided against it, at least during this reporting period in 2017, not to stress countries too much in terms of the additional data being required. So it was kind of a question whether countries would have the information on the size and length of the respective water bodies immediately to be able to actually scale the assessment by water body size, which might actually be included in a future update of the methodology, because from a methodological point of view, it absolutely makes sense to improve the comparability across borders.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Do we have any other questions? I don't see more questions. I think then we can move on.
Okay, if there are, something is in the, do we have more questions? Just a second.
Okay, a comment from Austria. According to the reference year 2017 is the latest available data. In 2017, the latest available data are from 2015. Okay, thank you. There was another question. Our nation has no district river water uses. Can we use one target value for all water bodies?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Okay, our nation has no district river water uses. Can we use one target value for all water bodies?
Absolutely. It is up to the country to decide at which level they want to set target values, at the national level for all water bodies, or at the river basin district level down to the specific water body level. For example, in the European Water Framework Directive, countries are asked to develop target threshold values for water body types within reporting basin districts, or river basin districts, how they're called in there. So it is in that regard very flexible how countries do that. With respect to the reporting, we would like to ask you to report those ones, even if you use national target values, report them for all river reporting basin districts repeatedly, because just for matters of implementation, the level of reporting for the target values has been chosen to be the reporting basin district level. So you would need to repeat those entries for all the reporting basin districts, even if you use the same one in all.
Could I add something there as well?
Of course.
Just to kind of highlight the fact that the target values are values that should represent good water quality. And good water quality will vary a lot, even within a country. And the country should be thinking about target values that actually do reflect what is good water quality. Because if you set your targets too high, you'll be unrealistically reporting that you can't achieve everything. Or if you set the targets too low, all of your water bodies will be good water quality, which in fact is not useful to you if they're not, because you won't manage them properly. So I think there are different ways of selecting and choosing target values, but the key thing to keep in mind all the time is that those target values have to reflect what is good water quality from the point of view of the aquatic ecosystem and from the point of view of how you might want to use that water without having to apply expensive treatment, or even say for contact recreation, which means swimming. Is it safe to swim in, for example? So that is one of the key things to think about when deciding on the target values, or when deciding whether to borrow someone else's values, or even whether to apply a target value to the whole country or to specific water bodies, maybe different for lakes, different for rivers, or even to regions within large countries. I think that's one of the important points.
And can I just add something in there as well, just to say that the target values which are set during this phase don't necessarily have to persist for until 2030, but as more data becomes available, these target values could be improved. So we don't want to set rules which may inhibit people from reporting based on the fact that they don't have target values. If a target value is set now, then as more data is collected over time, these target values could then be improved. The data template which has been created allows this to be, so in future versions of the reporting, you can back calculate. So temporal trends in a country's indicator can be plotted over time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for all those good questions. And please remember that if you have any more questions regarding the data submission, please do not hesitate to contact us through the help desk. And the email address is shown on your screen. Hopefully you all see it. It's sdg6waterquality.ecosystems@unep.org. And all relevant material, including the step-by-step methodology for indicator 632 and the data submission template, can be found on this same on the website sdg6monitoring.org. And also a recording of today's webinar will be made available shortly. And we'll also have a list of frequently asked questions on the website, so it might be useful for you to see what other countries have asked. And after this webinar, you should receive an email with this email address and the URL. So don't worry about writing them down right now. I hope you have found this webinar useful, and thank you very much for taking the time to participate and for all your very good questions. So we look forward to hearing back from you, and thank you again, and goodbye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.